So let's start with this, that EU leaders are essentially offering Africans legal channels of migrations from this trust fund. But where exactly will the money go to, and what is the level of accountability with this?
Well, those are the points which will be outlined in the 17-page action plan, which has now been signed by the 50-plus African and European leaders as the summit comes into its final couple of hours. Yes, that 1.8 billion euros being made available to African countries. The money really a pot of cash to improve economic stability in countries, to improve education, university places, jobs. Europe essentially wanting that money to keep migrants in their home countries and stem the flow, reduce the numbers of those making the journey in the first place. They also are keen for Africa to do far more to readmit and bring back failed asylum seekers, those who do not qualify to stay in Europe, back to their home countries. Donald Tusk, the European Council President, saying that African countries have a legal obligation to take back citizens who are being deported, and that is one of the major agreements. We are hearing, though, that there are claims that that hasn't been fully agreed between African leaders, or there is very little detail in the action plan when it comes to readmittances. But yes, those African countries who do more to tackle the refugee crisis in their own countries will have access to that major trust fund.
And Dan, also on discussions for today, the EU's current migrant strategy, which is essentially fostering cooperation with Turkey, and they've surpassed North Africa as a main launching point for migrants into Europe, haven't they?
Can you just, I'm sorry, I struggled to hear the question there, but I think we touched on the difficulties in Europe between the countries, and we've actually seen in the last 24 hours, for instance, Sweden saying that they are going to increase their immigration checks on their border control. And that is what has made this summit so difficult between Europe and Africa, because it's not simply two continents, of course. You've got dozens and dozens of countries who all have differing opinions over just what to do about the migrant crisis. We had heard reports from Nkosazana Zuma, a former South African minister who is now running the African Union executive, who said that no country in the world can be a fortress. And there are some musings from African leaders here that this 1.8 billion euro fund is not enough to tackle this problem alone. And actually, much more is needed to improve the development in some of those countries. On the other side of that, on the north of the Mediterranean, you have more than 20 European states who all have, as I say, very different opinions and ideas as to how they will take more migrants in, whether that's building barbed wire fences or if Germany taking nearly 1 million refugees in. So it's an incredibly complex situation. Whether or not this 17-page action plan and that pot of money will be able to resolve that, we'll have to wait and see over the coming weeks and months.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. That's our correspondent, Dan Whitehead, live from Valletta in Malta. Well, Brazil